They take a risk and wiggle their behinds. Good skiing is like good sex. It is all about instincts and movement and taking risks. Water skiing? That is even better. Water skiing is like a good orgasm. Mover, I should take it. Hello? Yes, did Pierre call you? 3 o'clock. Great. What is your name? Mike? Mike, I am sure I am in good hands. Yes, you can ask me anything. Now? Oh, you don't want your mover friends to hear. Fine. Congratulations. When is the wedding? Ooh. Are you and Jillian using contraception? Good. Now, what can I help you with? Stop right there. Mike, there is no size for a normal penis. Why do you think your penis is small? Did your fiancé tell you? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. What, guys? You should stop staring at each other in the gym and do more exercise. Mike, when you look down at it, your penis looks smaller. It's called foreshortening. Listen to me. When you are aroused, stand in front of the long mirror and look at yourself. You will see what she sees. Love your penis, Mike. Tell Jillian to love her vagina. Will you bring bubble wrap tomorrow? Oh, thank you. Bye. Oh. Where to start? Oh, God, give me patience and give it now. Oh, this is very special. Dan gave it to me. It's from Paris. Dan, husband number 2. Later, we'll talk. Music is very important to me. It is the thread that connects my memories. But no music during sex. You should concentrate on each other. Weißt du wie viel? Sternlein Stern. Don't worry, I won't sing to you. It is not my German, Israeli, French, American accent. It is my voice. People leave the room and quickly. When he was 7, my son Joel asked me not to sing him happy birthday. But this is what the song says. Do you know how many children go to bed without a sorrow, wake again with morning light, to be happy through the morrow? Only God alone can tell. God in heaven loves you well. My parents sang me to sleep with that lullaby. Then I was not Dr. Ruth. I was Carola Ziegel. When I was born on the 4th of June, 1928, I was an only child. We lived in a 4-room apartment in Frankfurt, Germany, on the Bramstrasse. All of the streets in our neighborhood were named after composers. My parents were short, but from the day I was born, they worried that I was too short. They sent me to doctors, fed me as much as I'd eat, made me swallow 2 teaspoons of fish oil a day. Nothing worked, you see that. My mother would put me in a laundry basket for safekeeping. Oh, this is my mother, Irma Hanauer. She is smiling here, but I don't remember her smiling often. I think this is the reason. My grandmother, Zelma Ziegel, on my father's side. My mother had come from a small village farm to work as a household helper in my grandparents' apartment in Frankfurt. That is where she met my father, Julius. Julius was not part of her job description. When my mother got pregnant, they had to marry. That was that. Grandmother Ziegel was not happy. She looked down on my mother. Her parents were farmers and had no higher education. She thought her son married beneath himself. One thing made Grandmother Ziegel happy. Me. Since my mother was busy helping my father with his business, it was my grandmother who read to me and played all day. She told me, always smile and be cheerful. You are loved. My father was the greatest influence on me. From him, I learned the importance of education. No one should ever stop learning. He inherited his father's business, wholesaling all kinds of things, and notions, buttons, handkerchiefs, everything you could think of. He would tie boxes on his bicycle and go from store to store. Our apartment was filled with all he collected. I blame it on him. We were Orthodox Jews, very religious. Jews are not allowed to touch money after sunset on the Sabbath. So, when we walked to synagogue on Friday evenings, my father always made sure he had coins in his vest pocket to buy me ice cream when the sun went down. I would sit with him and the other men. They lived to love God. And to love God, you loved learning. They would talk and argue, and then we'd sing. We sang even more when we gathered with my mother and grandmother for the Shabbos supper. My father would rise from his chair and sing to my mother, "Who can find a woman of valor? There are many good women out there who do good things, but you are the best of them all." I think those are the most sexually arousing words a man could ever say to a woman. And on Shabbos, it was a double mitzvah, a double blessing for a husband and wife to make love. It was a day for rest, eating, family, and terrific sex. Sex. When I was nearly 10, I first learned about sex. There is a book up there, a copy of the book I learned from. Did I bury the stool? Oh, no. My parents kept a book on the top shelf of their closet, and I saw my mother hide away. So then I had to see it. I piled books on the chair to reach. I risked my neck to learn the facts of life. The ideal marriage, its physiognomy and technique. What are that man and woman doing? Oh, I see. That is why my parents close the door at night. They wrestle with no clothes on. There is a baby hiding in a bag. Oh no, now they found him. They are pulling him out by his head. No wonder he is crying. Somebody opened the front door. I threw the book back into the closet. My father and mother never noticed I had found it. They had too much else to think about. By the time of the 1932 elections, the Nazis were the largest party in the Reichstag. In 1933, Adolf Hitler was named Chancellor. He called the Jew the greatest enemy of all, the incarnation of evil. Jews were forced out of government services and universities. Jews were not allowed to marry persons of German blood. In 1938, 7,000 Polish Jews were driven back across the border into Poland, and the Poles drove them back. Then came Kristallnacht, night of broken glass. Jews were murdered. Our synagogue and many others were burnt down. 1 week later, on November 15th, 1938, I was walking down the street holding my father's hand. I looked at all our shops, windows broken, swastikas painted everywhere. Our neighbor, Mr. Kovner, stopped us and said, "Julius, we must get out. Terrible things are about to happen." My father said, "No, nothing will happen tomorrow. It is a Catholic holiday." The next morning, the SS came to our apartment. Big men in shiny boots. My mother cried. My grandmother took money from the seam of her skirt and put it in one of the man's hands and said, "Please take good care of my son." I looked through the window and saw my father being brought to a truck. The truck was covered. I couldn't see if there were others inside. Papa must have felt me staring. He turned and saw me and smiled. And then he stepped into the truck and was gone. They sent my father to a work camp. They were not concentration camps, not yet. There was a conference of the Allied Nations in Evian, France. 32 countries took part. The question? What to do with the Jews of Germany? Their answer? Almost nothing. Switzerland, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France all agreed to accept the delivery of Jewish children, 300 apiece. Britain was the only country that would take more. This is from a German Jewish population of over 500,000 children. My mother got a phone call from a Jewish organization saying there was a place for me on the Kindertransport. After that phone call, for the first time, I saw my mother and grandmother hug. I had been selected to go to Switzerland. One of 300 children, all had to be German Jews under 16, an orphan, or with a father in a camp. If my father had still been at home, I would not have been on that train. And I would not be alive today. I was 10. My mother and grandmother brought me to the Frankfurt Hauptbahnhof. I had one suitcase with a doll in it, Matilda. She had painted blonde hair, blue eyes, a pink dress with flowers on it, and on her back was stamped a tiny turtle. Mama picked me up and hugged me and said, "Be good and study hard. You will like Switzerland. We will see you soon." My grandmother said, "You will get so much chocolate. Always smile and be cheerful and trust in Almighty God." Then I was on the train. I looked through the window as we pulled away. Mama and grandmother were running after it, waving goodbye. My grandmother looked so old running. I wouldn't cry. I made myself smile, just like my father smiled at me, so they would not be sad. I am a Yekka. A Yekka is a German Jew. Yekkas don't cry. We keep our emotions here. Think of a duck gliding so peacefully on the lake. But under the water, the duck never stops paddling. I opened my suitcase and saw Matilda. Oh, and a chocolate bar my grandmother had packed for me. And one thing more, a washcloth that I brought from my home. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it had my initials sewn on it. I wished I had taken more, but I didn't. I thought I would be back soon. The girl next to me, her name was Marga. She was crying. She was only 5. She needed my doll more than me, so I gave her Matilda. The washcloth I still have. I put it away, so I would never look at it again. Why look at it? It would only make me sad. Oh. There was one person who could take my sadness away. Shirley Temple! She was a little princess, her dimples, her curls, and she could sing and dance. And no one complained unless I sang. Shirley Temple made everyone around her happy, and that is what I was taught to do. They sent us to a Swiss home for children. It was called Wartheim. In English, it means place to wait. On our first night there, we slept in the second story of a barn. I found an opening in the floor where the heat from below in the stove came up. So of course I peeked down. The staff of Varheim were opening our suitcases. They made fun of our clothes. They found the chocolate bar my grandmother had packed for me and ate it. We thought they were to take care of us. They thought we were there to be servants for their Swiss children. Do their laundry, cook their food, clean their toilets. We were ordered to stay away from them as if we would infect them. In a way, that was a good thing. All of us from the transport became as close as brothers and sisters. We had no one to turn to but each other. Maybe that was a good thing, but maybe to the Swiss we seemed too happy. One night, one of the women in charge, Fräulein Riesenfeld, called us into the parlor. Kinder, you must stop asking me if I have a letter for you. If I have it, you will get it. It is time you look at your situation clearly. We did not tell your parents we want your children. They gave you away. Do you think if they truly loved you, they would have done that? They are not like us. They are Schlangen in Gelten, snakes that eat their young. You should be grateful they write to you at all. Remember, you are here because of the charity of the Swiss people. Remember how lucky you are. How could we complain? We were lucky. We were alive. Oh, look, I'm on the ladder. There, do you see me? I am trying to look taller. I am smiling here because for the first time in my life I had fallen in love. His name was Walter. There he is, hiding behind all the girls. Walter was a younger man. I was 13, he was 12. Walter was intelligent and so good looking, and he sang to me the first American song I ever heard. You'll never know, dear, how much I loved you. Please don't take my sunshine away. I love sad songs, maybe because I feel happy when they are over. Walter was clever. He lived on the floor above me, and he found a way to send notes back and forth. Walter! No one ever caught us. Dear Carola, baby. Did you know a baby robin eats 13 worms a day? Your friend, Walter. He was so romantic. Having a boyfriend meant everything. I thought I was short and ugly and stupid and that no man would ever be interested in me, but he was. He made me happy in a way I've never felt before. There was a school at our home. We had one teacher, Ignaz Mandel. He had a humpback and played the violin. All the women made fun of him, not me. He wanted us to learn. He encouraged us to write, to keep diaries, to keep dates. Dates are very important. Mr. Mandel told us they are the anchors to our memories. We don't know who we are if we don't remember who we were. July 20th, 1941. God, where are you? Will I ever see Mama and Papa again? I know that I must not lose hope, but it is not easy. What does it mean to be a Jew? If you don't think of us, I won't think of you, even on your holidays. Oh, July 29th. My romance with Walter is through forever. We do nothing but quarrel. I told him today to comb his hair straight back, but he insists on combing them sideways. Enough, it's over. August 30th, 1941. A letter from Aunt Ida. Aunt Ida was my mother's youngest sister. She wrote from Ithaca, a labor camp near Lublin. She said, I am always hungry. November 2nd, a woman came to the school and talked about the Auschwitz concentration camp. December 8th, 1941. America is now in the war with Japan. Bread will probably be rationed. That's all I wrote about it. I don't know why. All I knew about America was that it had food and Shirley Temple and wonderful songs and dances. They began to teach us American songs we did not understand. We learned Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy and wondered who this Boogie Woogie was. What we were taught was Zionism. Palestine, when the war is over, and it will be, Palestine wants you. Together we can build a homeland that will be safe for you and your children. Palestine is your country, yours, Carola, yours, Walter. Palestine needs you to come home. If I went with them, they promised I could go to school again. I could be a teacher for the Jewish children. I always wanted to be a doctor, but that was impossible. I might as well have wanted to be Shirley Temple. My grandmother had always told me that I should be a kindergarten teacher because I could fit so nicely in their chairs. And then the war was over. It was a Friday evening. We were sitting at the table finishing our dinner when the phone rang. We heard Fräulein Riesenfeld say, "Oh, are you certain?" And then she was there in the doorway with tears in her eyes. "Kinder, I have just received some very important news. The war is over. The Allies have won." There should have been shouts and cheering, but no. All of us were thinking of their parents. Were they still alive? What now? What would become of us? The Red Cross sent lists of people to Wartheim who survived the concentration camps. Fräulein Riesenfeld made us gather together and read them to us, instead of posting them for us to see. She read name by name, and we held our breath. 2 weeks after the war was over, she finished reading. There was not a single name on the list we recognized. She told us to go back to work, but told Walter to wait. I stood outside the door and listened. "Walter, we have gotten word there is a record of your parents being sent to Buchenwald. They are not among the survivors." Walter said nothing. He looked past Fräulein Riesenfeld and then he started to laugh. He laughed harder and harder until Fräulein Riesenfeld slapped him. Maybe she had to, I don't know. I didn't care. I ran in and shouted, "Don't touch him!" I got a letter from my father. He and my mother and my grandmother are safe in Tel Aviv. My father has a job on a farm. We have a little house all to ourselves. Walter can come with me. Everyone can come with me. Carola, I never read this letter. Of course she hadn't. They were all lies. Lies I needed to go on. Hello? Jochen! It's Joel. How is Barbara? How are my beautiful grandchildren? I have 4. Everything is terrific. I am almost finished packing. I don't want to talk about this again. All I am doing is moving across town. Your mother is wandering. I know what you and Miriam think. Joel, I can't live here anymore. Joel, this is my decision and it's made. I have to go. I have guests. I love you too. Bye-bye. Sometimes when children grow up, they forget their parents are still adults. President Clinton. Look, his arms around me. Oh, both arms. He's Bill Clinton. I was at his inauguration. Why? Because I told him to run for president. My Miriam was national director of a terrific program for homeschooled youngsters. In Arkansas, in the 1980s, it was a great success. Hillary Clinton was on the board, and so was I. When I went down for a meeting, someone asked me, Ruth, do you want to meet the governor? I said, of course. When we walked into his office, Governor Clinton stood up and said, Dr. Ruth. And said, Dr. Ruth, he knew me. And we had a wonderful conversation. And Bill Clinton is not only a Rhodes Scholar, he is so good looking. But his greatest gift is that he knows how to look at a woman, to make her feel she is the only person in the room. And at the same time, he is looking at all the other women in the room. I said, Governor Clinton, you should run for president and I'll vote for you. The rest is history. Oh, I have to show you this. Here I am with a beetle. Oh, we were at commencement at Yale. He was walking down the aisle and he recognized me. He said, hi, Ruthie. I said, sing to me. He held my hand and sang, he loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I told Miriam I met a beetle. She asked which one. I said, I don't know their names, but I know there were 4 and he was one of them. Oh, here is a target from when I took my grandson Ari to the county fair. He was so surprised when I shot 5 bullets into the bullseye. He didn't believe me when I told him I was a sniper in Palestine. You don't believe me either, I see that. Then you better hope I don't have to prove it. Palestine. It felt like a dream. It was a new world, my third. I was 17. Our kibbutz was called Ramat David. It was near the village of Nahalal. 200 people lived there, growing oranges and raising cows and chickens. When we arrived, we had to change our German names to Hebrew. I was now Ruth K. Ziegel. Ruth for root. I kept the K for Corolla, so my parents could find me. It had been 4 years and 6 months since their last letter. The life was hard, but that is what I expected. What I did not expect was to feel like I did in Switzerland, a second-class citizen. There it had been Swiss Jews who looked down on us. Here it was Polish Jews. They said we were not smart enough to leave Germany before the war started. I worked 8 hours a day. 2 in the kitchen, 2 cleaning toilets, 2 in the fields picking olives and grapes, and 2 more doing whatever they told me. I was a servant again. I wanted to work in the kindergarten, but they said no. They said that I was a good worker and that the most important person on the kibbutz is the one who could work everywhere. Oh. The Dr. Ruth's Guide to Teens and Sex Today. This is not an easy decision, deciding when to have sex for the first time. So many pressures from movies, from our friends, from our own bodies. If you have a pot of boiling water and you try to hold the lid down, if you let go even for a second, that lid is going to burst off because of the pressure. On the kibbutz, my top popped. I first had intercourse On May 9th, 1946, I can't tell you who it was with because I'm still friends with him and his wife. But I can tell you it was beautiful and romantic. I remember my first time so clearly. I remember how in love we were. And my first time was wonderful because of that. The kibbutz wanted families so that they would have more members. If a guy and a girl saw only each other, people said to them, "You want a room?" Of course they did. It was better than sleeping in tents, and it led to marriage and children. Not for me. I wasn't ready for either. I had been a part of this group dream. Now I dreamed of doing something on my own. There was a couple, the Goldbergs, when they came to visit. Mrs. Goldberg said, "Ruth, I could help you find a school where you could learn to be a kindergarten teacher, but you would have to leave here and go to Jerusalem." Jerusalem? I had been living in a community of less than 200 people. Jerusalem had 250,000. I had just turned 18. I had no money and I couldn't speak Hebrew. How could I leave? I said, "Mrs. Goldberg, I'll be packed in 20 minutes. Jerusalem? Jerusalem is not just a city. It is the living past. On my first day there, I borrowed a bicycle and pedaled as close as I could get to the Wailing Wall, what was left of the Temple of Solomon, 2,000 years old. The wall was under Jordanian control, so Jews were not allowed to go near it. But I got close enough to see the green of little plants that grew between the cracks in the wall. Even through the stones they grew. They are just like us. Survivors. I not only got into school, but I got a scholarship. I started school while the conflict between the Jews and Arabs grew, each wanting Palestine for their own. In 1947, the United Nations voted to divide the country into a Jewish state, an Arab state, and a small international zone. Good news? No. Immediately came the guerrilla wars between Jews and Arabs, not only by soldiers, but civilians as well. I was one of them. I wanted to defend the Jewish people. I joined the Haganah, the Jewish underground army. I learned how to take machine guns apart and put them back together with my eyes closed. I learned how to teach children arts and crafts by day and throw a hand grenade by night. That is where I learned to shoot. I am a very good sharpshooter. I was short and fast, so I was used as a messenger because there was less of me to shoot at. Nights, I stood on the roof with my rifle, watching over a barricade to the city's entrance where Israeli soldiers stopped every car to check it. I had been on surveillance only 3 weeks when I returned home late at night to the youth hostel where I was living. As soon as I got to the door of my room, the siren sounded. We were told to run downstairs to the basement. On the way down, I thought I could do my homework. Who knew how long we would be down there? I ran back up to the lobby. It was June 4th, 1948, my 20th birthday. The bombs, shrapnel tore into the walls. People screamed and plaster fell from everywhere. The girl here on my right fell to the floor, killed. And then a soldier, and then another girl. There must have been a second explosion because I was thrown back into the wall. When I tried to get up, a girl, my friend Hannah-Laure, was trying to untie my shoes. I shouted, "Why are you doing that?" Oh, and then I saw that my legs and feet were covered with blood. Hannah-Laure, do I have to die? An ambulance brought me to the hospital. There was shrapnel dug in all over my body. The biggest pieces in my neck. My ankles and legs were cut and bleeding. The top of my right foot was blown off. The surgeon, Dr. Eli, told me I was very lucky not to have lost both feet. He operated, and they brought me to a room downstairs that was once a cloister. All the cots were filled with wounded soldiers, the bunks were filled, but I was so small, I could fit on a bookshelf, so that's where they put me. Some of the soldiers were in bad shape. One lost both his hands from a grenade, another was blinded. But we all tried to help each other, so morale was high. Mine was the highest, because I was the only woman in a room packed with men. I could have recuperated for years. It took me 2 months to walk again. But thanks to Dr. Eli, I did. And he gave me an even better gift. It was thanks to Dr. Eli I met David. David was in the army stationed near Jerusalem. He was handsome, well-educated. He wanted to be a doctor, and he was short. He climbed over his camp's fence to see me. He had a motor scooter, and we would ride into the country and have picnics. I held on to him tightly, even when I didn't have to. After 2 months, David told me he loved me and proposed. I thought, how lucky I am that someone is willing to marry me. And I wouldn't just be marrying David, I'd be marrying his entire family, aunts and uncles who loved me too. David's father, not so much. He thought we were too young and that David shouldn't marry an orphan refugee. He didn't come to the wedding. He said he was away on business. When I heard the wedding prayer, I realized I was looking through the crowd for my father, my grandmother, and my mother. Sometimes I still do. Oh. The Dr. Ruth's Good Sex board game. Did you ever play it? There are little plastic pawns and sex clinic cards. Sex clinic cards. You move about the board and collect arousal points. You played it, didn't you? I knew you did. This game is fun and educational, isn't it? I should put on my glasses because the print is so small, but they're so confused with my curls. I have to. Did you know that only 30% of women have an orgasm during sex? The Talmud says that a husband owes his wife sexual satisfaction. It even specifies the timetable. For wealthy men, intercourse every day. For working men, twice a week. For donkey drivers, once a week. For camel drivers, once in 30 days. For sailors, once in 6 months. I told my daughter, don't ever marry a sailor. Harry, music, movies, a comédie française, Edith Piaf. Remember all your lives. Remember there's no reason not to cry. There were no medical schools in Israel for David, so we had to go abroad. On our first day in Paris, we couldn't walk down the street without stopping every step to look at the buildings and the beautiful women standing on the corner smiling at us. I said, David, the women dress so beautifully. If I had clothes like that, I would stand on the corner to show them off too. He said, Ruth, they're prostitutes. So what? They're sophisticated prostitutes. Sophisticated is something I never knew before. I took classes at the Sorbonne and became the director of a Jewish kindergarten. My life was changing and so fast. So was David's. He decided not to become a doctor. In 1954, we went back to Israel for the summer. In the fall, I came back alone. David's father was right, we were too young. I didn't want a husband, I wanted a family. He wanted to stay in Israel, it was his home. I wanted an education and to find my home. I asked for a divorce, and he agreed. Sometimes life is not romantic like a song of Piaf. Oh, there are more turtles in this apartment than the Bronx Zoo. I love turtles. Maybe because of the turtle mark on my doll Matilda's back. A turtle has two choices. He can either stay in his shell and go nowhere, or he can stick his neck out and move forward. Turtles are yuccas. David and I are still friends. He became a press secretary for the Israeli government. And we see each other when I fly there, or he comes here. Fred likes David very much. Fred asks, "Why did you leave her?" And David says, "I'm glad you have her." Maybe they get along too well. Fred had a love of his own. Gustav, the car. Fred named him after the King of Sweden. Fred only remembers our son Joel's birthday because it was on March 14th, the same day he bought Gustav. We had to get in the car and sing happy birthday to Gustav every 10,000 miles. Fred's Volvo dealer had a birthday cake for Gustav when he reached 450,000 miles. I taught Joel how to drive in Gustav. On our first lesson, I looked down at his foot on the gas and saw the street racing underneath it. Gustav's bottom had rusted out, and Fred just kept putting bigger aluminum sheets on the floor. I said, "Fred, the car isn't safe." He said, "It's safe enough as long as you have your foot on the pedal." The day he sold Gustav, can you believe somebody bought him? Fred drove Joel to school, and all of Joel's friends were wearing black armbands. Fred mourned for weeks, even when he saw Diane Sawyer on the news. Fred loves Diane Sawyer. Whether she gives good news or bad news, Fred is always happy to see her. Fred never talks to reporters. That is my world. He has his. Except for the day Diane came here to interview me for 60 minutes. Then I could not get rid of him. He sat right here next to me on the couch, and the first question Diane asks is, "Mr. Westheimer, how was your sex life?" Freddie doesn't blink. He looks straight into the camera at millions of people watching and says, "Diane, the shoemaker's children don't get any shoes." Did I pack it? Oh, no, this is not good. Hello? Miriam! How are you? The children? Good. You're Joel? Miriam's husband is a Joel too. 6'2" and a terrific hugger. Yes, Miriam, everything is wonderful. I am almost finished packing. Yes, I talked to Joel. Miriam, change is good. Look at me. I have moved from country to country. Running away? How could you say that? I have never run away from anything in my life. No, this is not your decision. You are not the one alone. Miriam, I have to go now. I will call you back. Fred. died 2 months ago, in 6 days. I was coming home from an Academy Awards party. Freddie was sitting on the bed. He couldn't get up. He said, "Ruthie, I think I've had a stroke." I called Miriam, Joel. Once he got to the hospital, he never opened his eyes. I could do nothing. There are some things not easy to talk about, even for Dr. Ruth. Hello? Oh, hello, Mike. Oh, you are very welcome. I have helped many men with their penises. Yes, you can give her my number. I will see you tomorrow. Bring strong friends. Bye-bye. Mike's grandmother wants to call. This is good. People don't look at the elderly as sexual beings. Worse, some older people don't see themselves that way. Do you know the most important sexual organ? The brain. The libido, which causes you to be aroused, is in the brain. And it can work properly until you're in your 90s. And I keep raising that number every year. From the window of my new apartment, I can see the Statue of Liberty. I saw it the first time from the deck of the Liberté on September 9th, 1956. Dan and I, husband number 2, sailed from Paris to the New York harbor. The German government sent me a check for 5,000 marks, about $1,500. It was for German Jews who were denied their education because of the Nazis. I never sought out restitution from the Germans, but here was money right in front of me, and I knew what to do with it. I said, "Dan, let's go to the United States. I'll buy you a suit." Dan loved clothes. He was a snappy dresser. Oh, and very good looking. I met him in a coffee shop in Paris after my divorce from David. Dan was a French Jew, and we began a wonderful love affair. We bought 4th-class tickets for the bottom of the ship. We were told to stay down there the entire trip. The deck was only for the first-class passengers. But when we neared New York, we climbed the fire exit stairs to the deck and stayed up all night waiting for daylight and America. Oh, I don't remember getting off the ship, just looking up at all the buildings, so many and so high. It made me feel even smaller. I remember ice cream carts on every corner, and I stared at every face. I was sure I was going to see Shirley Temple. The first thing I did was pick up a copy of the German Jewish newspaper called the Aufbau. We needed a cheap room to rent. I saw a big advertisement from the New School of Social Research announcing a scholarship for a victim of the Nazis. As soon as I saw it, I said, I am going there to apply now, today. We found a room in Washington Heights for $7 a week. I called the new school to give them my address, and they told me that I won the scholarship. This was our second week in New York. Where else can this happen but America? I said, Dan, we have to celebrate. Let's go see the famous Times Square. Oh, don't worry, we don't need a car. We can walk. 7 miles later, we were there. The Orpheum, the Latin Quarter, Playland, a sign, smoking. Wow, it's like they took the biggest cities in the world and smushed them together. Neon signs for Coca-Cola, Kleenex tissue, Camel, so many things people buy here. Whew. I was 28 and trying to master my 4th language. I didn't have time or money for English classes, and I couldn't understand difficult books. So I bought True Confessions and read them from cover to cover. Shacktown girls. They said I was man-hungry. Oh, paid to be party girls. Now I'll take care of you, you dirty man-snatcher. She pulled my hair and I screamed in pain. She ripped off my dress and laughed hysterically. You better not go near Rodrigo again or I'll kill you. This was my Dickens and Shakespeare. I was passing